So I'm reading my diary years, and I must say that there's a huge mixture of emotions as I read it. It's not about what well, how can I say it? The emotions are not because I'm linking myself back there, but because, oh my goodness, what will you think of me? I mean, here I am, a perfectly respectable woman. I've been married coming up for 57 years. I've got two children, five grandchildren, and three great grandchildren, and I'm quite well respected. But I'm going back to 1964, and things were different, and I was different. I was finding out about the world, I was finding out about me. I did so many things wrong. Were they wrong? Was it just part of growing up? Well, I'll just have to get to it and read it and see what you think. My diary years. In 1964, I decided to keep a diary. Before writing this book, I hesitated to read it, as at first glance it comprised boys' names and not much else. But now, of course, I'm glad I kept it and have found it invaluable in helping me to recall how things were. I saw the newsreel of the Beatles being mobbed by fans at Kennedy Airport in New York on the 8th of February, but never took much notice of the fact that in South Africa, Nelson Mandela was imprisoned. I do remember our new Prime Minister, Harold Wilson, coming to power in October. Life in the 60s was beginning to change. Television was still in black and white, and only one person in 12 went to university, and most of those were boys, but teenagers were really beginning to be heard. Family traditions were being broken down, although in my house things were going on in much the same way. However, life felt exciting. Adult authority was beginning to be challenged. The inhibitions of the 1950s were being dropped, and anything went. This seems hard to imagine now, as we live in a day and age when almost nothing is shocking. But back then, it was revolutionary. Women were still paid less than men for the same job, and opportunities for women were starting to open up. Mary Quant designed clothes that were so different. Diz and I couldn't afford anything much in 1964. Well, we only had our pocket money, but we copied designs, and we were definitely up there in the fashion stakes. Boutiques were opening up everywhere. London was the fashion centre of the world, so it's been said. Mods formed gangs, as did rockers, and they fought each other practically anywhere, but particularly at the seaside. Clacton and Margate were inundated at the weekends. I never went anywhere near that. Dad found a newspaper cutting and accused me of going, as he said it looked like me, but he knew it wasn't. Well, that's the flavour of London when I decided to keep a record of what I was doing and where I was going. In the January of 1964, I used to go to a local coffee bar called the Bezaz. This was a few doors down from the Wimpy Bar, which was a new, bright, and family-oriented eating place, and so for us, obviously boring. Mum and Dad felt happy to let me go there, but didn't want me to go to the Bezaz, which was a coffee bar with dimmed lighting and had a jukebox in the corner. They thought I'd meet up with the wrong type of people, but really it was fine and felt cool, or as we used to say, with it. I was a schoolgirl who'd led a sheltered life, but most of the people there were the same. Young teenagers out for their first foray. My first entry for 1964 is in the Bezaz. On January the 1st, Gene Pitney's 24 Hours from Tulsa was playing on the jukebox. A boy called Mick Clark asked me out, and I said yes. Well, hardly likely to say no, as our sole reason for being there was to meet someone. I remember he was very young, blonde. Well, he was sweet. He was kissable. He was a boy. And that's all that mattered. About this time, I remember asking Mum for some money to go to London to buy some clothes. She gave me £5. That's a lot of money. And I spent it on a modern hat in John Lewis. A hat, she said when I returned. I think she was cross with me for not spending the money more wisely. That hat was the start of me wanting good quality, modern clothes. It was like a cap in the shape of a mushroom with a little stalk sticking up in the middle. Very chic, or so I thought. When we went out in the evening, we mostly went to the pictures, the Beezas, or St. Paul's and St. Stephen's. These were church halls in Enfield where groups would play, soft drinks would be served, and we would dance. Dad always wanted to pick me up in the car, but I flatly refused. Sometimes he won, but I made him park round the corner. One night he pulled up a bit late outside St. Stephen's, and when he saw I was with some boys, he went mad, especially when one kissed me, but he soon got used to the new phase of his little girl's life. My diary entry from March the 19th is, Mick came, kissed him twice. The next day, March the 20th, an entry is, gave Mick up. Took it quite well. Went to St. Paul's. Sure, Mum knows. Told Mum he gave me up. So my friendship with Mick lasted 3.5 months. 2 days later, Alan Brady asked me out, and we went to the pictures to see Zulu. Mum also found out that I'd finished my relationship with Mick, and my entry is row. Very upset. I couldn't get the hang of what Mum was saying about going out with people and then giving them up, not being right. Of course it was right. Going out with someone didn't mean you wanted to spend the rest of your life with them. In fact, 12 days later, Alan gave me up, and I spent the next few months mooning over him. It was just childish relationships, but for me, going to an all-girls school felt exciting. Our family motto was honest. If any one of us said honest after our statement, then it had to be true. And nobody ever broke the rule. It wouldn't have been right. I often remember hoping Mum or Dad wouldn't ask me where I'd been and who with. Generally, they didn't. I remember one day writing a list of boyfriends I had and putting them into 2 columns. One column was headed GMU and the other headed GHU. One evening, Dad called me into the front room, asked me to sit down, and asked me what it meant. Yes, he'd found the list. I honestly couldn't remember. I panicked and I said I didn't know. Back to school and not being able to think on the spot or under pressure. Dad had obviously deduced what he thought it meant and didn't like his conclusions. When he said, honest, I said, honest? Honest, Dad? And that was the end of it. Of course, I remembered afterwards. It was gave me up and gave him up. Obvious. Nothing too bad.